Hello and welcome to the Dog Dialectic. I am your host, Ashley Jacobson of Airborne Canine Dog Training, and I am joined today with my new co-host, Benny Nyreen, who is also a dog trainer here at Airborne Canine. How's it going, Benny?
Feel good.
Yeah, you excited?
I like it here.
Nice. Fabulous. Benny, how long have you been working at Airborne Canine?
About 2 years.
Awesome. So today we're going to have a really good episode for you. There's a conversation that we were having pretty recently about drives in dogs. And there is some conflict or some disagreements about which drives are which and what drives are what or how many drives there are. And today we're going to kind of dive into it and talk about the different types of drives, what they are to us, our understanding of them, what the common misconceptions are, and everything in between. Before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. We had an awesome weekend last weekend. Was it last weekend? The weekend before last
Yeah.
weekend. We just finished Thanksgiving. We're back to work today. But the weekend before Thanksgiving, what do we do?
RH Nationals,
Yeah.
North Carolina. Very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Benny and I both competed in the RH National Championship here in Carthage, North Carolina, which is just down the street from us. We were competing in the RH area search discipline, which under the RH hierarchy is the FL. It's something in German that means area search. There were other disciplines we could have chose, but we decided to go for area search. And for the first level, for level V, Benny took first place because Benny's amazing. And I took second and third place with my two dogs. And then in the second level, I took first and second place. So kind of cleaned house a little bit, which was nice.
They all did really good.
They were awesome. And the other disciplines that they did there were tracking and man trailing. So are you going to do it again next year, you think?
I hope so. If it's near, yeah.
I think it's going to be in Wisconsin, they said.
Taking a trip.
Going for a trip. We're going for a trip. So we try to do a lot of big events as much as we can, as long as we can participate. What do we have going on in December?
December, AKC Nationals in Orlando, Florida.
Yes. So we are going down to the AKC National Championship in Orlando, Florida. We are going to be participating in the dock diving there. One of my dogs is going to be competing in the confirmation show. He is going to be there to show up, say thanks for coming, and then we're going to leave because we never win anything in confirmation except for that one time, which was a fluke.
Dublin will be there to be very loud.
Dublin's going to be fantastic. He's going to be the cheering squad.
We're going to try some herding.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so excited. We're going to do herding for the first time. Dublin's gonna do herding. He's gonna do great. I'm excited.
I hope so.
So, but yeah, so that's gonna be in Orlando, Florida. So if you're in the Orlando area and you want to meet up with us, hit us up. I think we're also gonna go visit Wolftang
Yes.
with Lexi and Ty, our friends down there. So we're super
Very
excited.
great people.
I love them so much. They're gonna be so great. Awesome. The other big thing we have coming up in January, we are doing a Train the Trainer webinar. The Train the Trainer webinar is going to be kind of a how-to instructional guide on building your trainer framework. What that means is establishing a step-by-step, this is how you want to train your dog or how you want to train dogs in general, and it's a starting point for your training program. So if you're getting into the world of dog training and you want to learn how to kind of set up your first dog that you're going to start training, this is a great starting point. It's what's worked for us. It's what's worked for me. It has been something I've developed over my years in business. And I think we've built so much into the framework, so much understanding, so many concepts that it helps bring everything together and gives you an idea of how you can build your own framework and make sure that the important things are built into it. So if it sounds like something you're interested in, join us. It's completely free. Sign in, and it will be the prerequisite to a hands-on seminar we're planning to do a little bit later in the spring. So if you want to come out, join us for that. We still always have also on Sundays and Wednesdays our Sport Dog Club. If you're interested in doing any type of dog sports, come out. We do tracking at 8 a.m. on Sunday. We do our club at 9 a.m. We do our scent detection at 11. And then also on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. we do club as well. So come on out, give it a shot. If you need any board and train, boarding, holiday boarding, day school, private lessons, you want to learn anything about dog training, sign up. We have openings. So let us know. What'd I miss?
I think it's all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Benny, what is drive?
Drive is your dog's not just motivation, but their persistence, their power, what they're willing to go through, how hard they're going to work for what they want.
So, Benny, what's the difference between drive and motivation?
Your dog can be motivated for something, they can want it, but the drive is really it's more than motivation. How hard are they willing to work for it? What leaps and bounds are they willing to overcome? How hard are they going to push to really figure out how to get what they want?
Okay. So let's see if we can dive into that. Let's get a little specific. So let's first talk about the different types of drives. So, what are the different types of drives that are most commonly accepted in the dog world?
We got our prey drive, our defense drive, and our pack drive. Those are going to be the big three.
Okay. So, let's start with prey drive. We're seeing a dog who is exhibiting a high level of prey drive. What are behaviors that we would see in that type of dog?
Your small animal chasing, squirrels, sometimes it can be cars. Sometimes those dogs will have some pretty high toy drive, the desire to chase, capture things.
Okay. Very cool. What determines whether a dog has a lot of a certain type of drive or not?
It's going to be a lot of genetics.
Okay.
So, your prey driven dogs, you see a lot of terriers, a lot of shepherds.
Nice. Very cool. Why do they have those in their genetics? Like, what does it stem from? What is prey drive originate from the original development of domesticated dogs?
I mean, prey drive goes way back to wolves. Desire to hunt for food, chasing those rabbits, keeping themselves, packs alive.
Okay. So, like, one of the things I like to think about when we're thinking about, like, the like prey drive aspect comes all the way back from like wolves back in the day. Obviously all creatures need to find food and consume food in order to keep going, fuel themselves. And then looking at the dogs that we have now and how we got from where we were to where we are now. And so, like, from wolves, when man started domesticating wolves, right, and started kind of getting them to, be a little bit more friendly with humans, we started to capitalize on these pre existing drives and use them to our advantage. What are some of the jobs that dogs have that capitalize on prey drive?
Any sort of protection work, it's going to be a big one. Herding can stem from prey.
Yeah, herding is a big one. Herding is the
Yeah.
one I was thinking of, especially because we were just talking about. So it's interesting because we see like how we use all the drives in training these dogs for certain behaviors, but how we manipulate it and change it. Because obviously, prey drive. What was it we were talking about earlier? The sequence of events that happens when a dog's in prey.
Yeah, the predatory sequence.
The predatory sequence. That's right. I keep forgetting it for some reason. The predatory sequence, which is what?
The predatory sequence is, I mean, we were talking about hunt earlier and if that's a part of that and where exactly that would sit. But aside from that, it would be chase, capture bite, kill bite, dissect, and consume up top.
Yeah. For some reason, I keep wanting to say like prey cycle, but I'm like, that's not right. So predatory cycle. So chase, capture, kill, consume.
Kill bite, or grab bite, kill bite, dissect, consume.
Got it. Okay. So when we look at dogs who are doing herding, right? Obviously, they're not going to kill the sheep, right?
Yeah.
But they're using that chase aspect of it, and they can even use that bite aspect for like members of the herd if they kind of get off or they're being ornery or they want to push back or whatever. The dogs can nip at their ankles and things like that.
Like you were saying with the way that we've domesticated different breeds and have used them for different jobs, it's really fascinating because the breeds will stop at different points in the cycle. So like you were saying, a lot of the herding dogs will go up to that grab bite, but they don't tend to go past that. Other breeds, like maybe your huskies, they like some chase, but they're not really big biters. And then you see other breeds like your shepherds that may go up to, grab, kill bite, sometimes dissect. And then you'll see a lot of terriers that tend to go to that kill and consume.
Yeah.
Dissect, consume.
Yeah, I love watching the ratting videos.
I love terriers. They're so cool. Little beasts.
I love it. Like when they get the little rats and like they shake them, you see the rat just dead
Yeah.
instantly. Little monsters. So like thinking about that too, like so I know the things that we love to do with our dogs is protection training. And in that predatory cycle
Sequence. I like to use the word sequence.
Sorry, sequence. It's interesting because we have certain dogs in protection training. Like one of the biggest things we focus on in sport protection training is grip development and how the dog bites. And it's natural for the dog to want to go from the chase, bite to dissect. And that's where you start to see certain dogs get into chewy behaviors, want to take the equipment, whether it's a
Hmm.
sleeve or, pillow, a wedge, whatever, take it to the ground and start to get busy on it, we call it. They start to like pick at the seams.
My mixed breed dog that I do protection with, Dublin, he's one of my favorite examples of this because, you'll see a lot of shepherds, Malinois, German shepherds that they're satisfied with the bite. That's what they like. I find that with my dog who has both terrier breeds and shepherd breeds, he it's almost like the bite isn't enough. He doesn't like to cradle, he doesn't like to calmly hold his items. He's a very busy dog, and as soon as he has the opportunity, he's immediately vocalizing, wants to take it to the ground, rip it, shred it. He goes farther than
Yeah.
some other dogs.
I remember I watched this like Discovery Channel like documentary back a long time ago when I was a kid, before I ever got into dogs. But there was something that was really interesting because I had cats before I had dogs, and so I used to love watching like the big game cats of like Africa, like lions and stuff like that. And you'd watch like them chase down a gazelle and they get on it. And something that was really interesting was that like they would kind of look at after a lion took down a gazelle and they would bite the gazelle's neck, but there wouldn't be a ton of blood, like, until obviously they started to, like, eat it, right, and
Yeah.
consume it. But to kill the gazelle, there was not a lot of blood. So it wasn't that they were, like, bleeding out, but what they were actually doing was they're grabbing onto that neck in such a way, if you look in your dog's jaws, there's a space right behind the canines. For us in sport dog training, we use that for our retrieves. Like if you're gonna do a retrieve, that's where like the dumbbell would sit, right in that gap. But it was actually developed through evolution because what they would do is they'd bite in so that the canines were right behind that like carotid artery in the neck, and they'd be able to close off the supply to the brain very quickly, and the animal dies very quickly,
So cool.
right? But for other creatures, like they start consuming the animal while it's still alive, right? So they skip past that like that grip behavior where they're just holding it calmly, firmly until the animal dies and go straight to dissecting. So it's interesting to see like how different creatures like evolve differently, but then
Yeah.
also seeing those differences in like the different breeds of dogs and characteristics of the dogs. Anyways, welcome to my TED Talk. My childhood trauma watching animals devour each other. So we talked a little bit so far about like protection training. Now, I would think that in protection training we would see a lot more like defense concepts. So where does defense lie in the world of protection training in your experience so far?
It really depends on the dog. So, I mean, some dogs are gonna have a lot more and, they're gonna be more that way. Other dogs are going to be heavy in the defense. Dogs that have typically more aggression, dogs that work not always out of insecurity, but some of them stems from that. But like we were saying earlier, the channeling between defense and bringing that to prey.
So what do you mean by channeling?
So with a dog that is going to be more defensive, they tend to be a little bit more insecure. So we show them, you see a little bit of threat. As soon as you respond more forwardly, we're going to turn that into prey. So that, big guy that was scaring you, threatening you, now, he's going to bring out a little prey object and it's going to be a fun little object that you can chase. And now you get to bite on that and you get to have that win. So with those more insecure dogs, it's going to show them a game that can bring them more confidence.
So let's take it back just a step. So we talked a little bit about the origins of prey drive in the animals. Where does defense originate from? What is its evolutionary purpose in the survival of the breed or of the animal?
I would assume territory,
Territory?
potentially, fighting over the prey. So, if they have killed a large animal, keeping their food from other wild animals.
Yeah. I would say I would feel like it's more like just, a survival mechanism,
Yeah.
like
And I
so
think all of that is survival mechanisms in
yeah.
different ways.
Survival meaning, protecting you from a threat,
Yeah.
right?
That's why I mentioned territory. So, like you, your pack, wolves, their den, whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, the way we see it in animals now, the way we see it in dogs now, is that when they perceive a threat, right? And in the dog world in today's modern society, dogs exist in containment, meaning they're either inside of a fence, inside of a house, looking out your window, inside your car, or on the end of the leash. Either way, they're contained. Whereas in the wild, if a dog or another animal came across something that they perceived as a threat, they have the option of flight, meaning to get away from the threat, or if they don't have that option, then they have to fight. So if they're cornered, if that threat is something that can't outrun them, they're going to have to say, "Hey, I need to get space between me and this threat without, having the option to get away." So the way I'm going to do that is say, "Hey, I'm big and scary, so I'm going to show forward aggression, whether it's barking, growling, lunging, which we perceive as reactivity in a lot of pet dogs. But we use that in protection training and we say, hey, when you perceive a threat, you demonstrate aggressive behavior. And that threat now is meaning either the threat moves away or the threat now becomes victim, in which case that's where we're talking about channeling into prey. Now, in protection training, what we see a lot or we talk about a lot is the concept of like dogs who are more defensive or less defensive. So what is like the differences between those concepts? Dogs who are more defensive, less defensive. What's the difference between those dogs? Are they nervy? Are they, garbage? Do you throw them out? Can we work with that? Like why is that important?
A lot of defense can definitely be worked with. A lot of it stems from the nerve of the dog. So some of them are going to be more confident. A lot of those dogs that are more confident, they're not going to be as quick to perceive threat as a more insecure dog. Some dogs are confident going in new places, meeting new people, all these new situations. Other dogs are going to see new situations, are going to see new people, and they're going to feel insecure. And like you were saying, those dogs feel stuck. They can't choose flight, so their only other option is fight, and that's going to be your more defensive dog.
Kano is very defensive.
Yeah.
Why was he so defensive?
I had a German Shepherd a while back who was bred for IGP. He was a much more defensive dog. So a lot of those traits you would see in a very a very prey heavy dog. A lot of toy drive, a lot of chase, a lot of confidence. He didn't have a lot of that. So when he was younger, we initially tried to do as a lot of people start in protection with like a puppy ball or like a little rag, just a fun little object. He saw the man in the rag and he hid between my legs. He saw that and he said, nope, I'm going to choose flight because I'm nervous and I don't know how to handle this situation. So as he matured, we couldn't capitalize too much on his prey drive for the protection because there just wasn't enough of it there. So what we did instead was we capitalized on that defense to make him stronger, more confident, show him that he can win those scary little encounters, and that made him feel good. And we were able to take that power, that aggression, and channel it into developing more prey.
I always forget that he was like a scaredy little
Yeah, he
puppy.
was.
I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
because he turned into a beast.
He did.
Yeah.
Like when you saw this guy in defense, like he was a monster. It was great. Arya has no defense. Everybody is her chew toy, and she's excited about that. Everybody's just someone she hasn't bit yet.
So this very defensive shepherd in protection, he would see a lot of fight. He would see a lot of conflict. Any decoy was a challenge that he wanted to fight and he wanted to overcome and overpower. So there was a lot of real aggression, a lot of anger, right? It wasn't really a game.
Do you feel like we talked about earlier? We're talking. There's a concept that we don't necessarily all agree on, but some people call defense drive fight drive, and that is a little bit of a point of contention among dog trainers whether it's a real thing or not. And so hopefully Jerry's not listening because I know he hates the word fight drive. Like knowing that he was an extremely defensive dog, something we were talking about earlier is how he likes, like it looks like he enjoys demonstrating aggression in inappropriate times, like with you, right? Something you were
Yeah.
describing earlier.
Yeah.
Like, and how that's probably a product of how he was trained, because when we talk about drive channeling between defense and prey, we're teaching the dog that when you perceive a threat, you can control that threat and make that threat go away by showing forward aggression. When you show forward aggression to whatever standard we're setting for today, it turns that threat into prey. So it shows that when you demonstrate aggressive behavior, good things happen. And so it probably adds to the fact that he was very like, I want to show aggression because
Yeah.
that's how I learned I get my way.
Yeah, I feel like people I don't think they consider enough things when it also comes to the topic of like handler aggression because a lot of people would see that and say, that's a very handler aggressive dog. He's willing to show aggression towards you for things that he wants. And some people would say, poor relationship, whatnot. But also, like with a dog with thinner nerves that is very prone to defense, they're gonna be quick to the trigger. So it's going to take a much smaller thing to have them kick into aggression versus, a more confident dog.
I was gonna say Daria shows aggression to me all the time. I don't know why. I think she has a couple bolts loose in that noggin of hers. I don't know why, but she just loves to show aggression towards me. But she's not a defensive dog, so she's in a mystery.
And not only was this dog pretty defensive, but he was also very independent. So with him lacking, some of that prey drive, poise, base games, a lot of that stuff wasn't very valuable to him. Nor was Pack. He didn't have a whole lot of pack drive. I honestly think he could care less if he was left in the middle of the woods. I would never do that. But
Miss you.
I don't know.
So what's pack drive?
Pack drive is going to be the dog's desire to have that sense of family in a sense, right? They're pack, they're people. They are dogs that get gratification from having close relationships.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I like that. From what I've heard, it also is considered sex drive, right? Even within having your pack, for our dogs, it's having access to mating partners and things like that. Because when you see like conflict in like wolf packs, it's over like incoming males trying to overthrow the existing male and wanting to, whatever. And there, you can see aggression come up in those cases as well. I do think it has a lot of roots in the evolutionary development of like sex drive and, the need to procreate. But we use it, the dog's desire to be with their people. We use it quite a bit in dog training. So we use it. I bring it down even to the nitty gritty with like healing. Like if the dog is like getting too far ahead of us and we turn around and walk away, when the dog looks back to see where we are, they see our back moving away from them. They go, oh shit, my pack is leaving, and they got to play catch up now, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about like what we see as far as drives in like our pet dogs and how people can differentiate, like, is my dog high drive or is my dog just high energy or is my dog high arousal, and kind of like what are the differences. So if someone has a dog and their dog is causing chaos in their home and they think their dog is high drive, how would you be able to determine whether the dog's actually high drive or if they're just like a higher energy dog?
It would have a lot to do with what they're putting that, drive or energy into. So my favorite example of a dog that can be higher energy but probably not have a lot of drive is going to be a husky. So you can see some of those huskies just love to run. They just love to run the yard. They can have a lot of energy. Maybe they don't want to sit still. But if you present them with opportunities to do things, a lot of times they don't want to do anything.
Yep.
They don't want to work for food. They don't want to play with you. They just have energy with no purpose to put it towards, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that is such a good explanation because like whenever I picture a husky just like out bounding in the middle of nowhere,
That's what they do, and they don't want anything else, really.
it's just go, no thoughts, no
No
intention.
reason. They just have energy.
What would like a high drive dog in like a pet home look like? What kind of behaviors might they exhibit if they're, let's say, prey driven?
And dogs that want to chase and bite your children. That's a big one. You
For sure.
can see a lot of destructive behaviors. But I guess you could get those with high energy dogs as well if they don't get that energy out.
I feel
You
like
see cats.
I'm just like imagining like a dog with determination to accomplish something. Like my ball is stuck under the sofa. I'm gonna eat the sofa.
Yeah. There is something on the other side of the room that I want, so now I'm going to break my kennel.
Yeah. And it's not just a desire to be out of the kennel, it's I want to get out and go get that thing. I want to accomplish this goal. I want to do X, Y, and Z.
I think another good word for drive is determination.
Yeah. And when we talk about the differences between drive and motivation, because I know we did an episode on the differences specifically between drive and motivation, but it's a very like intrinsically driven. Like we can build motivation. I can build food motivation simply by making the dog hungrier. But once that need is met, the motivation goes away. Drive is something that will never be 100% satisfied. We can always fulfill it and we can always aim to give our dog opportunities to fulfill it, but
It's always going to come back.
it's always going to come back. It's always going to be like, our dog has to have hope that there will be opportunities to fulfill their drive.
I think that's a big problem with a lot of dog owners is they want to crush drive. They see dogs that have a lot of determination, dogs that really want to do things, and they go, this is bad behavior. I hate this. How do I get this out of my dog?
Drive suppression.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't take it out of the dog. You can suppress the dog. You can train behaviors that can prevent your dog from potentially rehearsing those things that you don't like. You can manage the dog, but it's never going to go away. And motivation without a lot of drive is something that can go away. It's not genetic to the dog.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So like a lot of times when we get our training dogs in who are, maybe a pet home ended up with a high drive dog and they want to do what the dog needs, but they also need the dog to be able to exist within their household. Hell, I mean, like we just had Kevlar go home today and they have like two young kids living in that home. They have a ton of obedience to help control the dog in the home because inside the home, the dog can't demonstrate the drives because it would be chaos. It'd be dangerous. And so they also make sure that there are opportunities for the dogs to express those drives and be able to satisfy those drives to an extent, at least on a regular basis every single day. But I think building drive satisfaction into your routine in a way that's valuable to the dog, right? So if I have a dog with high prey drive, going out and throwing a tennis ball for 20 minutes might not be enough. We might have to find other ways to satiate it. If I have a border collie, playing fetch is not going to do it. We're going to have to challenge that dog's brain. So I think that's something that's really important for our pet dog owners to think about when they're thinking about, hey, my dog's bad behavior is a product of their genetic drives, their genetic, innate, intrinsically motivated drives. You know what I mean by intrinsically, guys? Sometimes I pull out the big words, the $5 words. Now, there was something I was reading about recently that was like new to me, but I like the idea, the concept, and that's the difference between, high drive, high energy, and then high arousal. So high arousal is something I think is really interesting to consider as well, because you might have like a low energy dog. Like I think Tinky's a pretty low energy dog, but he can get into high arousal.
Yeah.
He's not a high drive dog, but he can get into high arousal. And I feel like that's something that occurs with people who are like, hey, my dog is great 99% of the time, but then the 1% of the time when this one thing happens, my dog's
Yep.
uncontrollable.
And the fact that like arousal is something that can absolutely be built is a lot of times the byproduct of something that you're doing, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, for sure. So, things to think about. Your dog might not be a super high energy dog. Your dog might not be a drivey dog, but maybe you're struggling with that one off thing that 1% of the time when my dog just decides to be a nutcase. Maybe it's just a high arousal situation. And now we're just talking about some counter conditioning and changing that routine there.
I think something that you can see a lot too with when it comes to the differences between high drive and energy versus arousal is the dog's clarity. I think a lot of times dogs that are higher arousal, their brains, as you like to say, a bag of cats. They've just got so much going on in there. They can't think. Their brain's spinning. They're like, oh, I'm in such a high state.
I feel like Dublin is just
All three.
high all
three.
Because
All three.
he's a high drive dog. He's a high energy dog for sure. Like he's the highest energy dog. And his
Very high arousal.
So through the roof. Like as soon as like there's a possibility that a ball exists.
In his mind, there is always a possibility that a ball exists at any given time.
Oh my God. And then his arousal is just like through the roof. And but you've built so much clarity and so much like focus in the drive. Like, "Hey, you have all of this stuff going on. You got all this arousal going on. You got all this energy going on, and you're a very high drive dog. So let's use that drive and that determination to take that energy and take that arousal and focus it like a magnifying glass, putting a spot of hot light on something and giving him total focus on the ball."
High arousal is like a really interesting thing too because it can be great in some ways. Your dog is like real up in their brain, they're real excited, they're spinning, they're ready for anything. But then also, the clarity, getting them to think when they're in that mind state can be very difficult because a dog that is, has very high arousal, they're gonna kick into that scatterbrain much quicker.
I think like when we're looking at like working dogs and dogs with jobs and the ability to teach a dog to do something reliably, having a dog with drive is ideal, right? Because we can take this dog's innate desire to accomplish something and say the way you do that is through the behaviors I want, right? And so we can get a dog who can do behaviors reliably on a regular basis when we need them to do it for as long as we need them to do it. The high energy dogs, like they're going to have the energy to do the things, but not really the desire to do the things. So it's a lot harder to get those dogs to do what we want. What I feel like with the high arousal dogs is that you can get the desire to do something for an extrinsic motivator, but it's short lived. So, like, I feel like Tinky falls into that category because I can show him the ball. He gets super stoked to do the thing for the ball. But then shortly later, yeah, he still does the thing because he's really well trained, but he's lost all of his enthusiasm.
That the arousal starts to simmer down the more that he gets to do the activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh man. All right. So,
One more thing
yeah.
that I think is really interesting. When I think about the differences between these three things, something that comes to mind is neurotic dogs and people that say their dogs are very neurotic. I feel like those are dogs that true neuroticism I see as a dog that probably isn't very high drive, but they may be very high energy and definitely like very high arousal. A dog that just spins and they're in such a heightened state of mind without any specific reason or motivator.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's where you get like dogs who have OCD behaviors, dogs who develop other like behavioral conditions like self-harming behaviors or destructive behaviors or like light chasing, reflection chasing, things like that
Yeah.
as well.
So much arousal, but not knowing where to place it.
Yeah, for sure. So the reason we got into this conversation earlier was because there was a concept that crossed my mind, and that was when we were talking about the concept of hunt drive. So, hunt drive is the dog's desire to search for something, and this is something we use in like detection dogs when they're searching for an odor. How determined is the dog to continue searching until they find that odor? And how intent are they on finding it? So if they, are searching for it, are they going to get distracted? Are they going to give up and lose hope? How long does that take? And that it determines kind of what we decide as their level of hunt drive relatively. It's fine. Anyways, so that being said, does hunt drive fall under the category of prey drive or is it separate? And this is the kind of debate we were getting into earlier.
In my eyes, I definitely think it does. If it were, to me, I feel like hunt drive would be in the predatory sequence right under chase. I think it would maybe be towards the bottom. I think of wolves and where the hunt drive comes from, and it comes from, hunting for that prey, finding that wildlife to chase, bite, kill, dissect, consume.
I mean, I definitely think there's an argument for that. However, I do love exceptions.
Yeah, all the
I love the
nuance.
nuances are where the magic happens. So I was thinking, like, because not all dogs, like, not all everything our dog eats is something they have to chase, kill, right? Some of the stuff our dogs eat is like, you know, fruit off the ground or, treats that you've dropped or grass, right? Things that they don't have to chase, but they're out there searching for it.
That brings me back to the thought of like the dogs that really like the chase, but they're not a big fan of the bite. I would still say that the act of chasing things, even if they don't want to bite, dissect, consume, is still a part of prey.
I can see that. Yeah, I can say that for sure.
'Cause, I mean, we talked about how, like, with different breeds, how it stops at all different points.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like it's such a different behavior. And like I've seen dogs who are following a scent and they could be following the scent so intensely that a critter or creature, some prey animal could run across their path and they don't even lift their head to look at it. And it's interesting to me like if the hunt drive is built into that prey drive concept, then you would expect a dog with high level of hunting attributes to have a high level of prey. But you're right that, certain dogs stop at certain steps
And not
in
only that,
sequence.
but I also think certain breeds and specific individuals prefer different aspects of it. Like they may go all the way through, but maybe there's a specific part that's their favorite. Maybe the chase is something that they really enjoy. So, I mean, maybe for some dogs, like the hunting is just something that is so valuable to them that, through breeding and genetics, we've taken the dogs that really favor that aspect of it, that it kind of oversees the rest of the sequence.
And what's interesting is the fact, like, we're talking about how, like, the breeds and genetics are developed through our selective breeding to create dogs who excel in one area or another. And the two extremes of that concept, the hunting versus the prey, the ones who are desire the sniffing, the searching, the hunting versus the ones who just love to chase the shit out of stuff that moves, are both in the same breed group. Your scent hounds and your sight hounds. Dogs are wild.
All through breeding, isn't that so interesting?
Now, we I want to circle back a little bit because there was something else we talked about that was really interesting and it reflects very personally upon my dog. So I have a dog who has what I came to know as what's called prey drift. So in the concept of prey drift, you see this in like dogs who are like maybe playing and they're playing chase with each other, and then the play kind of gradually but quickly shifts from play to aggression. And basically what happens, and I saw this with him because we would have, either other dogs in our pack or we tried to integrate him with other stranger dogs, trying to make them friends or whatever back before I knew better. And you would see them having a great time, and then the one dog would be afraid, like, oh, this big German Shepherd's chasing me. Now I'm scared. And in my dog's brain now, he switches from play to I'm going to murder you. And we were discussing how it can't be defense because the one who he was aggressing upon was now the victim.
I think it's a really interesting aspect of prey because, I mean, dogs that, that prey drive, like they, genetically back when it was wolves, they would hunt those small animals, those rabbits, and, those little animals were fearful. And that was something that, those big wolves liked. They were like, "Oh, you're scared, you're small, I'm gonna eat you." And that still exists in dogs, and I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Man, even I think of, like, some working breeds and, like, some big, strong, powerful dogs when they could be social, but I feel like some of them, they see a person that's afraid and they're like, "I'm gonna eat you.
Yep.
I can beat you up, I'm gonna eat you." Right?
It's so true too. And like when we have a dog like Kevlar,
Yeah.
right? Kevlar is here, and Kevlar is like we don't touch Kevlar.
I would not want Kevlar to think I'm afraid of him.
Well, what about it like so we had a really strict routine that we used to make sure he could go in and out of the run, to go out and go potty. I would play ball with him, keep him occupied, make sure we had time to clean out his kennel, change his water bowl, give him his food and water, and that way he could go back to his kennel and be have everything he needs, all the comforts of home, apparently. But every once in a while there would be like something would change in the routine, or like he had really great obedience most of the time, but every once in a while he would break an obedience command, and then he'd be like kind of sneaking up behind me and I wasn't prepared, and I'd have a little like pucker moment. Like, oh crap, Kevlar's right here, and I'm between him and his kennel where all of his food and goodies and comforts are. And
And he knows what he wants, and if he knows you're afraid of him,
yep.
it can flip the switch.
So like when I definitely agreed. So like whenever I'm dealing with a dog like that, it's really hard to try and control your emotion. Granted, like we can do everything we possibly can to control how we're displaying our behaviors. so that we're not behaving as if we're fearful. But our dogs can smell it. And they love to smell those fear hormones, the cortisol levels, all that when you are, shit, I'm afraid of you. And they're like, bet you are.
Luckily, one of the aggressive dogs I dealt with was a fear aggressive dog. And I was still, new to that type of dog. And that it definitely made me a little nervous. And that's why you were there. But working with those types of dogs and working through those things are what is going to build your confidence in working with that type of dog. Like you're not just gonna, go up to a very aggressive dog and be super calm and neutral right off the bat. You really you train your brain.
And so, like, it's interesting because, like, people, your internet YouTube dog trainers are like, your anxiety goes through the leash and, affects the dog. And, like, not really. Not specifically, no. But, if you're behaving awkwardly or changing what you're doing with your leash pressure, with your words, like, if you're doing things differently because
Even if you're like
nervous.
sweating excessively, I can smell that.
So they can definitely smell your chemical changes, but like as long as your communication systems are in place and you're communicating consistently the way you have been, your dog should still be able to comply appropriately.
Yeah, I think if like, nerves completely messed up dogs based on, our nerves alone, I don't think people would be competing in a lot of high level sports.
Nope, not at all. Like,
We put a lot of intent into practicing looking and acting composed.
yeah. Because our body language is so much of what we communicate. And literally, like, I was thinking about this. I want to do a podcast on all of the nonverbal communication systems that we have with dogs. Because, like, everybody wants to have, I want to say heel and have my dog heel. I want to say sit and have my dog sit. I want to say this and have my dog do this. I want to basically be able to talk to my dog as if they're a human, but they're not. But even if they were, like, when we talk to each other as human beings, like, so much of what we communicate to each other is nonverbal, right?
Yeah.
I can say hi to you in the morning and you know if I'm in a good mood or if I'm in a bad mood,
Yeah.
right? Usually it's because like my hair's not done, I'm still in my pajamas and my eyes are half asleep, oh, Ashley's not awake yet. Or if I'm 3 Red Bulls deep and I'm like, hey, how's it going? I'm feeling much better. But you can tell just from someone's demeanor what they're saying beyond just the words that are coming out of their mouth. And I think the same applies to our dogs. But so much more goes to like our deliberateness with how we teach our dogs, like how we use our leash, how we use our body language, how we use our footsteps, how we use our hands, how we use our body position, all of that to communicate to our dog beyond just what they hear.
I also think that's why, a lot of people with very excited, very motivated dogs in training are the dogs that have very excited, very motivated trainers. The person being so excited, showing all this body language, not even necessarily verbally that they're excited, is going to get the dog excited. And then those are going to be the dogs that you really like to see.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think enough owners capitalize on that. I think they work with their dogs and they're like, okay, you're going to sit now. And the dog's like, okay, I'm going to sit, I guess.
I think it's hard sometimes to get people to open up and not be so like self-conscious, but I think,
Yeah, I think we all get that way from time to time. But again, training your brain, the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Exactly. I like to say fake it till you make it. Like when I first started my business, I had no self-confidence in what I was doing. I was convinced every single day that my business was going to fail and I was going to go into crippling debt. But I went into work every day going like, I am the biggest dog training business in the world. We're the best. We're the most successful. And yep. And that's how we carried ourselves. No, it's true.
You are the number one in the world.
Best dog trainer. Number 1. Ichiban. Okay, back to drives. I don't know. What else haven't we covered on drives?
I think we skipped over the concept of fight drive a little bit. Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so what is the concept of fight drive?
So the way that you phrased it, you said there are people that believe, I'm trying to remember how you said it, that believe fight drive is defense drive. I think maybe for some people that could be true, but I think it's most of the people I've seen talk about it see it as its own separate drive. So they'll see like prey, pack, defense, and then fight. So the concept that people believe to be true for Fight Drive is a dog that enjoys conflict and fight, but they don't believe it stems from defense.
Yes. So it's would you also say it's like dogs who are kinda, like, quick on the trigger? Like, dogs who are willing to go to aggression,
Forward aggression.
yeah,
Yeah.
and not, like,
Yeah,
nervous
because
aggression.
there are some dogs that, even right off the bat when they're young will like to show forward aggression, but they don't seem very insecure in that aggression, and that's what people will try to separate from defense. And I think some of those dogs are just really powerful dogs, really pushy dogs. Some of them that, have seen that they can win, that they can use power to get their way, but I don't think that is in of itself its own drive.
Right.
Like what we talked about, it's technically learned behavior. Uh, and there will be dogs that will be more prone to being that way, drivier dogs, cheer dogs,
Mhm.
but I don't think fight is its own genetic.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, if we think about, like, when we say, aggressive behavior, when the dog demonstrates aggressive behavior to get what it wants, right? We might teach a dog to bark on command, do a bark and hold, right? And we teach that as a trained behavior, but in like naturally existing behavior, it's something that a dog might do to, neutralize a threat, right? If the dog barks and lunges at a threat, that threat ideally would back down. Now we take that behavior, the naturally occurring behavior, we put it on cue, and our dogs can learn that when I bark at you, it gets what I want. And so they can start to learn and make this association that forward aggressive behavior gets me the thing that I want. I think there is a philosophical conversation to be had that the dog could be using aggression to protect or to defend its access to a resource, which would then be under the realm of defense, right? Because defense is protecting themselves or their access to resources. And it could also go into the prey drive.
And like there are a lot of people that think defense has to be from insecurity. They think it has to be from a super insecure dog all the time, but I don't think that's always true.
Well, the only difference between like an insecure dog and a not insecure dog is that an insecure dog is perceiving things that are not actual threats as threats.
Yeah.
Right? So when we say a dog is insecure, they're seeing something that is totally normal, not unusual at all, not threatening in any way, but they're perceiving it as a threat.
Yeah.
And they're therefore responding in a defensive way, meaning showing aggression towards what they believe to be a threat, even though it's not. Whereas your normal dog, right, just like your normal person, if you saw someone running at you with a shotgun and a flamethrower, you're going to go, that's a threat. And everyone would agree with you. But if you're just walking down the street in the evening and you see someone walking towards you and you go, oh my God, I'm scared, you might have some anxiety issues you need to work through, right? Not normal reaction to passing by somebody on the sidewalk. But if you've had some situation or you're a generally kind of nervous person and you're walking down the street at night and you see a shady figure walking in the opposite direction and you get a little scared, right? It could be the product of something that is not generally normal or your average psychology. And I think that applies to dogs too. But the response is still defense, right? The response is still like, hey, I perceive a threat. I need to handle this threat in any way that I possibly can. If I can flee, that's an option. But in like our protection dogs, we remove the option of flee and say, you got to fight, right? What is it going to take to get you to show me forward aggression? And the moment you do, that's going to turn that threat into a victim, meaning that threat becomes prey. And that's when we start to get into that drive channeling, like we were talking about earlier. As the dog learns the game, so the moment they see a threat or what we have shown them as a picture of a threat, even if they don't actually see it as a threat anymore, they've now discovered that the game is, hey, when you pretend to be a threat, all I got to do is be aggressive and you're going to turn into the little prey bunny that I love. Then they go into aggression faster. And because they've become familiar with the game, we can now ask them to stay in that defensive state longer before they go into prey. Like, for instance, if you just look at Tinky through the windows over there, and you kind of drop your forehead and look through your eyebrows at him, he's gonna lose his shit at you because he's like, "I love this game.
Yep.
This game
Yep.
makes me feel big and
And that's what a
powerful."
lot of people would call fight drive. I think people look at dogs that enjoy that conflict and enjoy showing aggression, and they say that's its own drive. But like we were saying, it's also partially learned behavior.
Yep.
So you gotta think about where that comes from. Maybe some prey guarding, which is a very common thing in protection training
It's
where
basically learned resource
yeah, it's basically a form of learned resource guarding. So there will be an item, whether it's like a wedge, a little rag, a puppy ball, and we're like, oh, I'm gonna steal it from you. I'm gonna come over top of it. I'm gonna put my hand near it. I'm gonna stare at you, and as soon as you bark at me, I'm gonna back away. And eventually, it leads to us giving the item to the dog. That is a game, and even a dog that is confident can enjoy that game,
and it's like, in the dogs who aren't confident,
but it's still defending the item, whether or not the dog is insecure about it.
exactly. And we use the game for dogs who are insecure to help them feel more confident in that scenario, in that picture, because that's what we're trying to teach these dogs. And this is really common in the protection training world, where you have these dogs who are insecure. We have to teach them, hey, if you're going to be effective in a protection role, your job is to defend yourself and your handler from a threat. And we start out with very simple things like someone staring at you a little funny. That's a threat, right? But it's going to grow from there to much more intense levels of threat, and teaching the dog up through as high as the dog can go that those threats are just characters in a story and that they have control over that character, going from being a threatening character to being a victim. So that way, ideally, in the ultimate goal, whether it's sport or protection like out in the real world, when they see a threatening person, a threatening character, someone testing them, they look at it, oh, that's just the game character again. That's just my buddy that when I aggress towards them, they're going to become a prey bunny, right? And become my little plaything that I'm going to have fun with. Even if ultimately in the real world picture that doesn't happen. We teach the dog, hey, when you show forward aggression, that changes that person into a plaything, essentially.
And I feel like fight drive can also get mixed up with that predatory drift that you were talking about, where it can stem from prey but display itself as aggression. Prey, or no, it can be aggression. Prey can look really nasty in some situations, and I think that's something that people look at and try to categorize as its own thing.
Oh, yeah, because I mean, aggression isn't isolated to defense. It isn't
Yep,
isolated to one or the other. I mean, it's just a matter of where the aggression is targeted
yep,
and what the purpose of the aggression
yep.
is, right? So when our dog is using aggression in defense, the animal is not intent on consuming the victim of that aggression
They
for
want to win.
sustenance, merely for survival, to escape that situation, to survive the conflict. Whereas in prey, ideally that dog's motivation is for sustenance. At least that's where it originates from in the evolution of dogs.
Yeah, and then like in that defense, like you were saying, survival, protecting resources, that's also where it'll start to be about winning because then they start to, enjoy that game. And I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And then also, we were talking about prey guarding. Another reason like the prey guarding is so huge is because that's a much lower level threat than to threaten the dog's life itself. Oh, you have this object in front of you that you really like. I'm going to threaten that for an insecure dog rather than yelling directly at the dog and being forwardly aggressive towards the dog. We're not trying to scare the dog, we're trying to help them be successful.
Yep. Yeah, because even though, like, when it comes to a dog who is in that defensive mode, and most dogs, your average pet dog would want to go into flight, and we want to say, hey, we're going to remove that option. Like, I think you even described it too when Kano was a puppy, he wanted to get away. And the only
Yep.
way he could do that was to hide behind you. And
Hmm.
that's what we call going into avoidance, right? The dog is looking for any way to show, hey, Mr. Threat Man, I'm no threat to you. Like, I'm just over here minding my business behind my handler. And we want to be very careful when we're, working in these drives not to push the dog into avoidance.
And this is where we talk about dogs that are more defensive, oftentimes being dogs that are a little bit more insecure. It wasn't a big threat that made him that way. I think it was literally like Decoy was down on his knees on the ground and just being like, look, hello, look how fun. And he was like, that's scary.
Yep, it's okay. I have a video of Tinky doing the exact same
Yeah.
thing with, like, a rag. It happens. Sometimes the dogs just have a moment, but you work through it. It's not the end of the world. So, like, if you're out there trying to do some stuff and trying to have fun with your dog and your dog gets scared, it's not the end of the world.
And when you're doing it with the right people, there is nothing wrong with working a dog that is more defensive. A lot of times, the dogs that are more defensive can come out to be very nice dogs, very powerful dogs. Because now they're taking that, well, I was insecure, but now I know I can win. I can win. I can win. And they get stronger and stronger. And now they're like, I can overpower anybody and anything. And now they're not insecure. Now they're enjoying it.
So interestingly, reminds me way back when I was in like my first year of business. Back in 2020, I was actually a member of Tar Heels Club, but I didn't have a dog. I was just literally just there to watch. And I had a client come to me who was interested in doing protection training. He got a Malinois from a good breeder. I looked at the breeder; they were a great breeder. And it was this little Malinois puppy. He was like 9 weeks old. And I'm like, oh, I know how to I'll get a little foot pole and a rag, and I'll play with some, play with the puppy a little bit and see what's up. This puppy was the most forwardly aggressive little defensive shit I have ever seen in my life. Like, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this dog. You have to go see Jerry. I cannot help you. Like, this thing was a freaking monster for a little 9-week-old puppy. Didn't want anything to do with the rag. Said, fuck, get that rag, get out of my face. I want to bite you. Like, and every person he saw, he wanted to murder. Like, this little 9-week-old puppy was just wanted to murder everything it saw.
I wonder where that dog is now.
But I told him, like, hey, you have to go see Jerry. So he ended up bringing the dog to Jerry for like a club day. And I was just there as a spectator because I was just there to learn. And Jerry gets out the little rag and he plays a little rag with the puppy. And like the puppy has the rag and Jerry went to go like steal the rag from the puppy. The puppy spits it out, went after Jerry. And Jerry like, oh crap, and like backs up. He's like, this is the first time I've ever been backed off of a rag. And I'm like, oh my God. And even Jerry, so the conversation he ended up having with the person, because I didn't know what to tell the person. And this person was a very new protection handler. Like this was his like first like sport dog that he wanted to do sport with. And he was basically explaining like you could, like this dog could develop into a very powerful, very successful protection trained dog, but he's also going to be a liability if you don't handle it properly. So, and I think that's something that's very important for people to understand when it comes to training defensive dogs is that until you have obedience control on the dog, like the dog can potentially be a liability. Because when we say those highly defensive dogs, those kind of insecure dogs, they're again perceiving things that are not actually threats to be threats, which means old grandma walking down the sidewalk.
Dog goes, oh, I can beat up grandma. I can win that fight.
Goes, ooh, I got to go take care of that threat real quick. And you taught me exactly how to do that. Right. And then you have a bit of a liability on your hand. So when you do have those kind of nervy dogs, those kind of unconfident dogs, then you're going to have to be very aware of what you have and what you're teaching that dog to do in the situations where they perceive threat.
That's why protection dogs are not for everybody. Not everybody needs one of those dogs. I think they're for a specific type of person that knows how to handle and deal with the dog that they have.
Think like anyone would be safe doing protection with a dog like Tinky.
Yeah.
Right? Tinky's never just going to haul off and bite somebody. It was such a great opportunity on Saturday. We're doing redirects, and it was the first time we were doing it outside, so it was a new picture for him. I sent him to his usual decoy. I sent him to Abe, his favorite decoy in the whole world, and then the other person we're using for a redirect. So a redirect is where he goes to bite one decoy, and then I recall and then send him to another decoy immediately. And the other decoy was a decoy he's never bit before, he's never met before, never seen before. The decoy was like behind the decoy was all spectators. So he was kind of blending into the group of people, and he was wearing a camouflage suit. So when Tinky turns around, I tell him pocket, he doesn't see the decoy. And the first people he sees is Benny and Jerry standing right there.
I was sitting on the ground with your phone videotaping down by the barrel. Tinky comes off the bike, he comes down, he comes running up to me with like the happiest face I've ever seen. And I'm so calm recording. I'm just like,
Not a care in the world.
what's he gonna do? Yeah, no,
Pinky would never have bit him, not in a million years. Wasn't gonna bite Jerry. And then he's just like looking around, like, wait, where is he? Where's the person in the suit? And I'm like, he's over there, stupid. And he's like, okay, I got it. Thanks, mom.
I'm gonna go bite you now.
Like he does it because it's just a game. And even Daria, like she would never just haul off and bite somebody. Like if someone broke into my house or like broke into my yard while she was out there, she's like, hi, new friend, will you pet me? Right? Like I think if I gave her a bite command, she's like, I don't know what that means right now.
Yeah,
I get
pictures.
pets. Yeah. So like if you have a really social dog and you do protection training, because I had a client recently ask me, like, because they were like, oh, I want to do sport with my dog. I just don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, oh, you can do anything. The world is your oyster. Like you can do fast cat, you can do dock diving, you can do rally, you can do agility, you can do, search and rescue, you can do scent detection, you can do tracking, or you can do protection, right? It doesn't matter what breed it is. Any breed can try it. Like worst happens is they suck at it. Not a big deal, right? We all suck at something. So
On that same topic of what you were saying about Tinky, I don't know if I've told you this story before, but there's this fun story about my little dog that does protection. So he's not, he gets unsure of people from time to time. He's not outwardly aggressive. He's not going to go and just nuke somebody, but he would prefer you don't touch him. He just kind of minds his business. But there was one time I was in a parking lot with a friend late at night and we were playing with a ball. I was just showing my friend some stuff that I had trained my dog to do. I had this friend holding a ball in the dark McDonald's parking lot. I pointed my dog at the ball and I gave him his alert command. He's forward, he's barking. This random man appears and stands this close to my friend, and I was watching my dog, so I didn't see this man. I started moving forward, holding my line, and I was like, he's not going for the ball. And this man was like, whoa, whoa. And I'm like, whoa, go mind your business, buddy. This isn't about you.
oh my God, I love it.
That was just one of my favorite stories because it surprised me, but it was just really interesting to see from my dog. It's in there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, good to know that if I needed to alert you, you would.
Yeah.
And to see, that dog who's so ball crazy choose a small old man he's never seen before over this ball was fascinating.
Ooh, I love it.
I
I
know.
love it.
But I say that to say that like protection dogs and bite work training, it is going to affect every dog differently. Some dogs are going to go, this is a fun little game. Some dogs are going to go, I'm a monster and I'm going to beat up everybody. So it really depends on the dog that you have and the way that you're doing your protection training.
And so we had this conversation with Skeena,
Mhm.
Skeena's mom, because we have this client who is part of our sport dog club now, and she's getting started in protection training, and the dog is doing great now. We were a little concerned because the dog was very nervous, very like everything was a threat, barking at everybody, barking at every dog, barking at everything that moved, just constantly forward aggressive, barking, snarling, lunging at everything from a very young age as a puppy. German Shepherd, go figure. But, we talked about how protection training works and how it can be beneficial or the potential it's not beneficial. She has a kid at home, so she was a little concerned, like, hey, is it safe? So, when we're going through the protection training progression and the grip development, it's a very long, long road of developing grip on a rag, on a leather strap, on a puppy ball, on a pillow, on a wedge, on a bite roll, on all sorts of stuff over the course of months before we ever get to anything that resembles a sleeve or a jacket or a bite suit or any type of clothing that a person would wear. So as far as the dog is concerned in those first several months, they're just interacting with equipment. We call it equipment orientation. It's something we do want to eventually kind of fade away if possible, depending on the dog and the requirements, what you want from the dog. But in the beginning stages, it's just equipment orientation. And for a dog like Skeena, the reason why I thought it was a really good opportunity is because all protection training is in those first several months is the dog learning to play with strangers, right? And so the dog begins to realize that every stranger is just a new friend who's going to play my game with me or potentially play my game with me. And that's what we want the dog to think because, like I said, the dog's natural response to defense is to escape. to flee, to get away. And we teach the dog, like, hey, there's no reason to run. That person just wants to play your favorite game. And for our protection dogs, that favorite game is the biting and fighting game,
Hmm.
right? But we start with those toys.
I think there's also a lot to do with arousal in this as well. So dogs that are much more aroused, as we said, they can have a little bit less clarity. And so sometimes those are the dogs that can be a little bit riskier because their brain is up in that state and they're like, oh, things are happening, things are happening. And that's also why you'll see a lot of those dogs deal with redirection. They get frustrated. Their mind is just going a million miles an hour, so they just throw teeth.
Yep.
That's yeah,
Yep, it's exactly what I was thinking where they just start like they just bite whatever is in reach
yeah.
because that's where their brain is at and like it's like scrambled eggs and they're just like, I don't know what to do, I'm just gonna bite.
Yeah.
And then you'll get dogs who are biting inappropriately, like, oh, I choked them off and they turned and bit my finger, or they, re-gripped on the decoy's hand or something, that could be potentially very dangerous. And so when you're selecting your dog, like we're looking at these different drives, and you can start to determine the dog's drives, one based on the drives of the parents. So when you're looking at breedings, hey, mom is a high drive, high prey drive dog, and dad was a very defensive dog. Like these are things like, well, I don't know if the puppies are going to come out high prey or high defense or both, which is also a possibility. But if you say, I'd probably, if I'm a newer handler, want a dog who is on the higher prey drive, but maybe not like crazy over the top, especially for a newer handler. If I'm more of an experienced handler, maybe I do want a very high prey drive dog, or maybe I want a dog who has a lot more defense because I want that power behind it. But you can start to see that by looking at the parents. And then for the puppies, you can do temperament testing at 7 weeks old to determine with some degree of accuracy. This is, hit or miss in some cases, but you can start to determine the puppy's levels of drives through a puppy temperament test as well.
It also this is gonna be very dependent on the handler and what exactly you want in your dog, but I think that nerve becomes a very dirty word. But I think that in some cases with some dogs and the type of dog that you're looking for, a little bit of nerve in the right places might be what you're looking for. Especially if you want a more civil dog that is going to be better suit as a personal protection dog. Sometimes, that's why you're going to want a dog with maybe a little bit more suspicion, a little
Yeah.
bit more edge to it. Because, like we said, you can take that edge, you can take that suspicion and make them more confident in it.
Daria would be a terrible personal protection dog. I'd be like, go bite the bad guy. And she goes, but he looks so friendly.
Where's his suit?
Hi, new friend. You can give me belly rubs?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I feel like for me, I like a dog with a good bit of both.
Yeah.
I like a little bit more of that civil nature in the dog. I like them both.
I know.
I do. Personal preference.
It was funny because like Addison's one of the newer decoys at Tar Heel, and I was out pottying Daria before club, and he was walking over with his chair to go set up and have a seat. And as he's walking by, I'm like, all right, get your love in while you can. And I let Daria go up to him, and she jumped on him, and he's like petting on her. And he asked me later, he's like, don't you just hate that I can like just come up and pet your dog and they just let me pet him?
Preference.
And I'm like, no, I love that. Like, I want my dogs to be super social. I want my dogs to be able to be pet and loved on by just about anybody because I've had non-social dogs. I've had dogs who just can't go up to people. And it sucks. Like I was having this conversation earlier today too about like how hard it is to have a dog who doesn't like people, a dog who's a threat, a dog who's a potential liability, and how stressful
Mhm.
that can be and how much it changes what you can and can't do with your dogs.
Yeah. I like a more neutral dog. I like a dog that can exist around people, a dog that can be chill with people. I mean, I probably wouldn't prefer that they're everybody's best friend. Like, I prefer a dog that just kind of minds his business, but can also turn it on when it's time. But with that type of dog, you do also have to know that you do have, room to have a liability.
Obedience
It's,
control.
yeah, obedience control and a lot of things to think about.
So getting to know your dog's drives and getting to know like how that affects their behavior and what it changes as far as requirements from you as the handler plays a huge role into it. So I think we've covered just about everything. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. That was a great conversation. great debut into the podcasting world. You did a fantastic job. So again, I'm Ashley Jacobson with Airborne Canine. This is my co-host and assistant director, Benny Irene. Yeah, go out, train your dog, have fun, and yeah, we'll see you next time.